It always comes to this. More nice shit. Morning guys, back into another tattoo progress update today. Where I last left off, I had showed off the second pass of the full color version of these roses on my head here. These were done over multiple layers of opaque and white over top of red, several passes of red. These were originally done as kind of like a neotrad red rose, and then later in life had them toned down to kind of more like a black and gray variant of that, and then with everything else on me going full color again, it was logical to make them again full color. I'm not like people go, okay, well if they were full color before and then you turned them opaque or white before, what makes you certain you won't do that again? And the answer is I'm not certain I won't do that again, but I am certain I can do that if I want to. I've already done things similar to that. People ask me, for example, if you could black out an area after it's already been covered up with blackout. Yes, you can do that. The center of my eye tattoo on my sternum, chest, stomach area, that weird in between your chest and your stomach, that has been done that way several times. And it's just like, it's a lot of work to do it. For example, when we were building the portal over my the middle of the eye there, that took, I think, 4 passes of color. I don't know that it needed to take that many. If we had have waited longer in between each time, we would have had a better result probably. But the initial results were fairly mute. But with enough effort and patience, you can do pretty much anything with this. This is all going to tie into where I'm taking this point. It's just a matter of patience and effort, and it's not a matter of, because some people will, oh well, you know, it's if you have the right artist you can do it. Well, that is partially true. So the right artist in this sense means having someone that's patient and open-minded. It has nothing to do with technique past a certain point, which is why I've been able to have apprentices within their first year of tattooing pull this kind of result on me. It's less about being a 10 out of 10 tattooer on a technical level and more about being an open-minded person in general. And you need that on both the client and the artist side. To take nothing away from anyone that's done any of this work on me, I lead with this information partly because people think that it requires some amazing tattooer that, you know, could turn water into wine. It's much easier to turn black into color in tattoos than it is to turn water into wine, so long as you don't have too much scar tissue. For this will be a good lead in. So we did not get what I wanted to done in here today, yesterday, and that's fine. I don't really care. It's not really a big deal when I get tattooed, you know, as much as I do. If that day doesn't go according to plan, it's not like you're not going to be back there again. Now, with that said, I do like what we have here, and the session prior gives me good reason to believe that it's going to heal very well. That's all healed up there. That's from last week, I should say, my last session with Rick, and this was the one that preceded it, again going in with these bolder chunks of color for a more dramatic effect. The reason I mentioned that we didn't get everything I wanted to in here, and you can probably even see there are some areas that aren't saturated in there this time. For whatever reason, it could be the fact that we've gone through some extreme weather change here in a very rapid kind of pace. Like we went from fairly chilly to fairly warm, well, really warm, 34 degrees here yesterday. It could be hormonal. It could have been how I slept, something I ate, whatever. My body was, the skin was tight. I could see it even when Rick was putting ink in. It wasn't receptive the way that it normally would be, or less receptive than normal anyway. I mean, you would say, oh, I bet your skin's always like that. But actually, I think probably because I'm fairly pale and fair-skinned still, even though I have all this ink in me, it's actually pretty easy to get a decent result on me. You'll see, I can put some videos in here of first pass color on black where immediately the color takes. And you can always tell if something's not working with blackout because like if that ink isn't going in well, you're not going to have much of any result. Whereas if it's going in well, you'll see it right away. And you could say, oh, that's the same for any tattoo, but it's especially the case with blackout because it's so much different from everything around it. And there are some tones that you can put in over black that look dramatically different than more so different than they would over negative, say a yellow. It's hard to tell when your really light colors are saturated with some of the like yellows and light blues and light pinks and stuff like that over negative space because it's actually closer to that than it is to blackout. Whereas when you're putting some of these tones in over black, that looks distinctly different from what a black would, right? So it can be easier to tell when something's saturated, whereas there's also staining, right? So parts of your skin will be drier than others, and when you go to wipe, a certain amount of that top layer is holding on to the ink, and it's hard to tell what's actually in there. With blackout, that's not so much a problem. And I could say this after many years of experience looking at this. Now, to get back to my point here, before I ramble off in another direction and lose it, parts of this did take pretty well, but there's obviously we didn't do the red in here like we did some of it up here. And, you know, it's whatever. We'll get back at it. It's not like I'm sweating it. I think this is like the 6th time we've been in this area on this sleeve alone, just this version of this sleeve. And it's not for the pain of it. I don't care about that. My body wasn't cooperating that day. And so rather than, you know, trudge on and force it and try and get a result that will be compromised by my body's reluctance to take the operation, it's sometimes it is better to just move along. And this could be frustrating for someone, and this is another reason why I understand traveling for work, and some people will say, oh well, that's an excuse an artist will make. I don't think it is. I don't think that we should see our bodies that way either. I think that we can be in a bad mood mentally. I don't know why people would think that you couldn't be banged up physically in a similar way to mentally. But people might travel, say, 3,000 kilometers to get some work done, and their body is just in a shit state. And it'll be even worse for the fact that most times when you're traveling that far to see an artist, they don't know your body that well. They don't know how you heal or anything like that, and they're just there to do the job. And so what they'll end up doing is they'll end up delivering the result no matter what condition you're in. I know for a fact we have some people that come in here that the artists work, they like working on less than others, and it has nothing to do with personality. That's not something that you can put on the person, and it's not something that you can like get mad at them for, but we are canvases, right? Anyone that chooses to get a tattoo, you're a canvas, right? And it has nothing to do with your canvas for that artist's art. It's not an ego thing. It's just, imagine you have a shitty piece of paper to work on, right? It's not going to be as smooth or as nice a looking result as it would be with something else, with another piece of paper that was nice. Or this is a bad analogy, but there is a good analogy here, and I'm missing it. So you're trying to get your best result on something that is in not the best shape or in a reduced kind of receptiveness to your art form, and it can be frustrating. Whereas Terry has said a million times, and not because he thinks they're pretty, but he would love to just tattoo young, early 20-year-old girls all day long because their skin is usually better than, say, a crusty older dude's skin, right? This week, Terry had a reschedule of a girl he's doing some black work stuff on, and what I got him instead was this 65-year-old guy that he's blacking out, and it's just like, it's a bad trade. Obviously, it's still money, and, you don't treat people poorly based on those factors, but he's just going to get a worse result with more labor. Now, Terry will be willing to do that. Rick is at a point in his life, and I guess he's probably been here forever, if I'm honest with you, where, like, if he's getting a diminished result, he's just not into it. And he also refuses to work the skin past its point where it's not taking ink. He won't continue down that path. It's part of why he's in and out of my ditch. Whenever he works on my ditch, he's just in and out because it gets pissed off real quick, and he doesn't want to do scar tissue. It's like his edict, and you can say whatever you want about this, but he won't do scar tissue. He said this to me for as long as I've known him. He does so much cover-up work where something will come in and it's already got a little scar tissue. He's like, I'm not adding any more to that. And Christ knows I have scar tissue, right? Whereas, though, most younger artists, they feel this pressure to give a person the piece, especially because there are so many artists these days tattooing. It's like if a client has an experience where it's like they go in and they don't get a tattoo finished the way they wanted to in one session, well, maybe I'll try someone else next time. It's like, yeah, and then maybe the next guy won't give a fuck and he'll fuck you up, And when you go in for these He-Man sessions, these 10-hour sessions, you probably have scar tissue you don't even know about. And you can't always see it, by the way. Which, for example, in my last session on the rose sleeve, well, second last, when we were working on my ditch here, I took a little bit of scar tissue, for sure. Like, not a substantial amount. But it's because, Terry he's just going to put it in there. He doesn't give a fuck. He's going to do it. Terry is especially one for that. He's just going to get the job done. For people who aren't getting tattooed multiple layers or tons and tons of work on top of work on top of work like me, this isn't really so much a big deal because you're going to get your tattoo. There's going to be whatever amount of scar tissue in there. You might get a touch-up later in life, and that's going to be it. Part of the reason why I've been able to continue with this so much is because I don't have actually that much scar tissue. And people will be laughing when they hear that, but it's a reality. A lot of my work has been done. You see how this goes. I do 2 to 5 hours at a time, typically. That's been pretty average for me. When you start getting into the range of 8 to 10 hour sessions, and you do them like once every few months or whatever, your pacing is not good. And your body is having a harder time healing each time. And it's not doing it as often. So I don't think you're getting as used to it either. And so it's this huge dramatic effect. The work is being forced into you at a harder pace for your body to tolerate. And then because you're not doing it that often, it's probably taking longer to heal as well. And all of these things not only will lead to a diminished result, but also during the session, the work that it takes to put it in there and your skin starts tightening up, that's a real thing that happens. I observe it all the time. That inflammatory response, when you start working past that point and forcing things, you are basically getting a worse result and doing more damage to get it. And every passing moment at that point, you have a greater risk of all kinds of problems, not the least of which is scar tissue. And scar tissue would be the death of a project like mine, as anywhere that I have substantial scarring is harder to saturate. So it's as frustrating as it can be to not get everything in here done, and this is just a great example of this, we can always come back. And this is part of why I prioritize, or I tell people that they should be more comfortable with working local. There are artists in your area that can do most things. And at one point, it may not have been that way, but the overall talent of general artists in this industry has gone up exponentially over the last decade, but certainly over the last 20. And I've been here to see every step of that. Trust me. When Rick opened his shop in this city, no one had ever seen work like what they were doing over there. And so they were out 2 years pretty much immediately, him and the guy he opened his shop with. Because they were doing realism and color realism and everything else, like a little bit of everything else. But it was really impressive work at that time. And now it's like you can find people capable of doing that stuff pretty well anywhere you go. And most of these guys are good enough to be photocopiers for whatever Pinterest tattoo you're asking of them as well. So it's not actually as important as you think it is to travel, thousands of miles for these tattoos and get fucked up in these long, brutal sessions and that have no concern for what your body is saying to the artist. They're just going to fucking labor through it and give you the result at whatever cost. It doesn't need to be this terrible memory that I hear about from so many people. Like, I did 5 hours on my rib, I did 10 hours on my sleeve, and blah, 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 and it's always like, why'd you do that? You didn't need to do that. Convention-style tattooing is the worst, in my opinion. Going and doing, these big pieces with these random artists and these time crunches, and it's just like, this is the worst way to do tattoos. For your body, for your mental state, for the overall quality of the piece. It shouldn't be this spectacle. I think it's better to do this almost like a fitness routine. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, well, that would be nice, but X, Y, and Z. It's like, if it was doable for me, then theoretically it's doable for anyone. I was not born with some silver spoon up my ass or unique conditions. I don't think that anyone else would be doing it for as long as I have either, because most people, they get their bodysuit and they're happy with it. That's it. Whereas I got my bodysuit, was happy with it, and got more bodysuits, I fell in love with this process, and I've done it every way, and I will tell you, the best way to get good results, and the only reason why we're able to get these kinds of results over black, I truly believe, is because I'm not putting my body through a ton of stress each session. And because of that, it heals really easily, quickly, and it does not debilitate me. If I was doing a pace that my body couldn't keep up with or heal, you guys would know right away, and I would be falling apart all the time. And I certainly wouldn't be able to be thinking, I just got tattooed yesterday on my inner bicep for 2 hours. I'm going to go work out after I do this vlog. And that's exactly what I'm going to do, by the way. And I already worked out a little bit before this vlog. Now, if I was, fucking with my body real bad every time, no chance that's happening. And I wouldn't be in the, currently, and this is not a brag, by the way, because I could be in much better shape. This is part of why I don't make fitness videos. But I am currently in the best shape of my life, and I'm still getting tattooed twice a week. So I've been able to put on quite a bit of mass while doing that because I treat my tattoo regimen the similar way to my fitness regimen. And by the way, it's much less strenuous. I go harder on my fitness these days than tattoos, which is why it's always funny to me that when people will say things like, oh, his whole personality is his tattoos. No, that's just what people online want from me, expect from me, and that's my whole image here. So I get why people say that, but in reality, it's a small fraction of my life compared to even fucking anything else. My family life, my work life, my video game hobbies, or anything. Fitness. I spend more time eating than I do tattoos, It's actually a very small portion of my life, but it's at a clip where no matter what I'm doing, I'm never hindered by it. And it doesn't take me long to heal, and the work heals very, very well and easily. So I would say, and I know I say it all the time, but people should treat this as more of a marathon than a sprint. Anyway, I've got a session coming up on my knee actually this week with Alex, and I'll have a cool new color piece to show you guys here in a few days. Have a great day.